Hey, what is going on, guys? Rudilanel here, come back at you with another batch tutorial. I'm gonna get the Windows command line fired up as well as Notepad. Notepad++ to be exact, an incremented value of Notepad, which makes it a whole lot better. Alright, now in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about the set local and end local commands that we've been looking at in the last two videos. One of which was function local scope and the other was script local scope. Function local scope really kind of showed you guys the syntax and how we want to be using these commands, and script local scope gave you guys a better understanding of some more of the side effects and what these commands actually do for all the functions and things that we're using it for inside of our scripts. But remember, there was a little quirk that endlocal had. Endlocal actually deletes, or sort of like removes, all the variables that it's seen so far. So when we're trying to return a value back to a function that we've already created and we're already using, it has a little bit of a hissy fit and we don't get the value that we want. So let's try and see what we can do here. First of all, I'm going to create a new script. I'm going to call mine script.bat, as usual. If I can actually name the thing. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to set up the skeleton code that we usually have. Go to main, we'll create main. Now I can go to a whole nother function. I'll call mine add1, because this is going to be a real simple program that all it would do is just add 1 to the variable that we create here. So inside of our main function, I'm just going to simply say echo main function is running, and then we'll say setting x to 1, and that's what we'll do. We'll set x to equal 1. Now remember, we're using this -a tag because we want to remember that this is sort of like an integer. It's a number. We want to be able to work with it later on, and it is a number, so we're just going to keep it that way. Now in our add1 function right up here, what we're going to do is set, set x. Remember, we need that -a tag that I was just talking about, and then the value of x plus 1. Okay. And we'll echo, actually, we want to display that we're doing that inside of the add1 function, so performing add1 on x. Okay, I'll actually bring this out a little bit more so you guys can understand the logic. And then we can echo, echo out x. Not really, we're going to need the value of x is now, and then the value of x. Okay, now here's our program, kind of. Probably a lot of you have already caught on that we don't really have our set local and end local commands here. So remember, we're going to put these at the beginning and end of each function that we create. Set local and end local right down here. Okay. Now, if we go ahead and run this real quickly, script, main function is running, setting x to 1, and the value of x is now 1. Did you guys see what we missed here? We didn't remember to call our function. You guys probably remembered, but I didn't. Okay, add 1. Now remember, with the local scope, this function is going to be able to see x already. Because we've set x to be 1 up here, and we're calling add1 from inside the main function, it gets the values from main. So x is going to be able to be accessible inside add1, and that's why we can modify it and add it right over here. So let's go ahead and run this one more time. Main function is running, setting x to 1, and performing add1 on x, and the value of x is now 1. So we haven't changed here. We still have the value of 1 right here, but that's a little weird. Isn't x 2 at this point? Add1 says x is the value of x. Okay, add1 says x is now 2, so it's doing what we want, but remember, we're not being able to change or see the value in this case back inside of our main function. So what we can do is we can return the value that we've tried to in a video previously. But endlocal is going to try and prevent that. So what we need to do is actually something kind of quirky and kind of different. What batch allows us to be able to do is a sort of like group commands. We can actually execute multiple commands one by one, or like one after the other in a sort of group. And we'll see this a lot more in conditional statements and some other things that we're going to be getting into later on in the future, but for now we're going to be using sort of like a shorthand notation for it. We'll just use the ampersand, which is kind of like an and, so we can end local and then set the value that we need. So let's go ahead and try that. We're going to want the value to be returned at the very end of our function, remember, just like a normal return statement would do in any other language, and we'll use end local ampersand, which is the shift formation of the 7 key on your keyboard, most likely. I mean, I don't know for sure, I don't know your keyboard, but, and once we've got the ampersand, we can go ahead and set x to equal whatever we had prior. Now when we go ahead and run this, let's say a main function is running, setting x to 1, performing add 1 on x, and the value of x is now 2. Okay, so we're doing end local, so we'll remove all the variables that we've already set right up in here, and I can prove this to you guys in a moment, but we're still returning the x that we wanted to be able to see. So if I just set a quick variable, like something to be everything, and we try to echo out something inside of our main function here, you guys will see something is something. But remember, this isn't going to display anything because it's inside the other function, and since we have a local scope, that variable is not going to exist in any of the other functions that we have. But remember, we still get the functions that are all from inside main to begin with, and that sort of thing. So it's a little hard to keep track of, especially when you have a lot of variables, but once you understand the core idea that whatever you have previously is going to be incorporated in the function that you're calling here, but everything in this function is not going to be incorporated in the other function. And, you know, the more I talk about it, the more difficult it is to understand. So I think I'm going to end this video right here, guys, but it really is a simple thing to understand, but you really just have to keep practicing and knowing this concept and this idea in your head. Thank you guys for watching, though. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next tutorial.